next 2 weeks. We're changing things up a hair, but the explanation should go a lot faster, being you kind of understand how things are going and how they work. If you are new, if you're not new, then obviously you kind of caught on pretty quick the first time regardless. So now that everybody's kind of on the same page and has had a class or two, or at least 2 or 3, to be able to adjust on how to explain things, what things are supposed to look like, kind of have a rough idea of how your kids are behavioral wise and skill wise. A lot of these explanations will go a lot faster, being that you kind of know what I'm talking about now when I say certain things. So I'm going to kind of try and do it differently. That does move a little bit faster. So I'm going to do them and talk at the same time. That way it's not so much kind of split in half. So we'll go through each one and what each one will have for the different levels. So over here on the high beam, everyone will use the beam and the bean bag. It will go on their head regardless of the level. When they're in yellow, they're going to walk forwards all the way down. When they're in green, they're going to walk sideways. Their arms can be on their hips if they want to go sideways and not have their arms out. If it's a little sketchy for them, that's okay too. And then red will go backwards all the way down. So both directions going that same way. So only yellow does forward, green only does sideways, and red only does backwards. If they happen to fall, they get back up from where they fell at, put the bean bag back on, and then start where they're at. They don't have to start over from the beginning of the beam every single time that they fall. Over here, this is our incline beam. The kids seem to really like this one when they get to jump off the end. So yellow will walk forward. They don't have to be on releve. And then they will jump off to SLP into this little hoop down here. Okay, intermediate will do walk forwards, but they'll be on releve with their arms up. So please reiterate to them, if they cannot walk in releve up here like they're supposed to with their arms up, they will not get to jump down there. Because a lot of the times they think, oh, I just have to walk forwards. And then they just walk and run and jump off the end. So make sure their arms are up and they're on releve or their tiptoes. If you're trying to explain what releve is and trying to get them to remember, releve is raised up on your toes. So both start with R, if that helps you at all. And then red will walk backwards. So they will end up walking backwards all the way up here. And when they get to the end, what I have them do, if they're too scared to jump backwards without looking this way, you can have them step off the end and jump backwards. But really try and have them not look where they're going as they're jumping. Next one, for yellow, they're going to do walk sideways both directions on the beam. So hands out or on their hips is totally fine. So walk all the way down, walk all the way back. Green will do grapevine. So the easiest way to teach them to do that is one foot goes in front, you step. One foot goes behind, you step. So some kids just do in front and then they just keep doing in front. So if you teach them that in front and a step is two totally different things, then they can add in backwards without getting so confused. So we'll go forward, step, backward, step, forward, step, because really they're only taking a step that stays the same, that doesn't ever go forward or backward with that other foot. So that other foot that isn't crossing forward or backward, it'll be easy for them to remember that it just steps if you have them do that way. And then red, they will do leaps on the beam. So you can have them start with their arms up and their leg up. That's totally fine and leap. Or if they're a little bit more advanced, you can have them step onto their not favorite foot and then leap. That one's a little bit harder. Over here, I saw quite a bit, whether it was on beam or trampoline and stuff like that, if you had them put their arms up or had them stand with their arms up or had them walk, a lot of their bellies were out. So I think having them all work on straight jumps and feeling what up and down is for all the levels is going to be way more beneficial than me trying to make this 3 totally different stations. So really all you want them to do is be totally straight the entire time. So they start straight, they get to touch the pit blocks of their legs, and then they get to go super straight all the way back and try and land with their arms up. Now, yellows will have probably the most difficult time trying to keep their arms up. Really encourage them to be straight, because the longer that they can do this without falling, the better it will be to translate onto a skinnier beam, onto a higher beam. Okay, if they're just kind of going all willy-nilly, take a second, try and explain to them that it's supposed to be straight and that when it's called a straight jump, it's not a crazy jump, and that they really want to feel like like, they want to look like the beam, how it's super straight. So green shouldn't have too big of an issue. They may just rush through it because they think it's boring. Really try and make it like a challenge for them if it's a little bit getting off track and you're not really getting them to do the straight jump part and they're just more so like going super fast through it. Reds, it should be totally fine. They should not have any issues, but again, being they are red, you may need to challenge them. They can do straight jumps in a row, or you can have them show and see whose is best, you know, really making sure that they master a straight jump that is straight across all levels and not just a whee. So getting that figured out later on figured out now will also help later on with pivot turns, with holding releve, with just balancing on one foot. The straighter that you can be while you move, the easier it'll be for when you don't move, and vice versa. The easier you can stand here without wobbling, the easier it'll be to start walking without wobbling also. So it all kind of goes hand in hand with anything that needs to be straight body on the beam. So moving on over here, it's kind of the same setup, but it's different progression wise. So yellow will have the hula hoop down by their legs, and they're going to, if I can stay on the beam, they're going to spin in a circle. So this is introducing them on how to turn, but without actually pivoting on their feet, and I just fell on a preschool beam. So getting them to turn around without actually pivoting on their feet yet. That way, once again, they're straight up and down, and their body is center over the beam, and getting them to master that first before we try doing it fast and with only one movement of the feet. Then green will do pivot turns. So hold down by the hips. Remember, raise onto releve. Both all start with an R. And then pivot turn. Okay. And then pivot turn back the other way. All that fun jazz. Pretty self-explanatory. If they start to get bored or they don't see the point, you can try and see who can do the most pivot turns in a row without falling, or how many each kid can do within a time frame that's right. That way you can kind of get them to try a little bit harder. And then red will do the exact same thing as green, but their arms will be up. So now the full progression has kind of been made. They're doing pivot turns, their arms are up how they should be, how they would be over there on the big beams, and they will spin, and I just fell again. Okay, and pivot turn back the other way. Okay, and then this one down here, you can't really see all too well, but there is a path of these little dots, and you set them on their flat side. Now, if the flat side is too easy and they can stand on it and they can make it all the way across how you have them set out, you can flip them so they're over on this side. So they're more wobbly and it's a little bit harder to stay on. These do squish down, so don't worry about, see they squish down. So when you stand on them, if you squish them all the way, the kids won't, but they will squish down a little bit. And when you do put them this way, it's going to squish down even more. So you don't have to worry about them rolling their ankle or anything like that, because it won't be this high off the ground. It'll get a little bit smaller. So if for whatever reason, walking on the dots plainly like this is way too easy and it's not a struggle whatsoever, you can flip these over onto their rounded side, so it's a little bit more challenging. Try and only do that for green and red. Try and only do it for red, because I feel like greens will try and just run across it super fast. Make sure that they're walking. It's not a run. Trying to move slowly on things that are unstable is going to help them develop their balance faster than just running across it and not even really having to balance at all.